It will still be in the game world, and it will be in a position to be, hopefully, somewhat challenging. Alright, so in addition to enemies, the game also has one obstacle, and that obstacle is a black hole, which is an object that appears at higher levels, and as soon as it is struck by your shooting at it, or I believe if an enemy runs into it, it activates. And as soon as it activates, it starts sucking everything nearby into it, just as you would imagine a black hole would. And black holes then last for a certain amount of time, and then they blow up. They're done. They destroy themselves. Additionally, you can shoot black holes to make reduce their lifetime. Now, I think in the game, actually, what it is if a black hole consumes a certain amount of material, it self-destructs. So shooting it is basically feeding material to it, and then enemies falling into it is also. So if you fall into it, you die. But this is a strategic element in the game, which I would really like to implement, because you can use it to protect yourself. And in fact, you'll find when you play the game for real that you will get black holes on the screen, and you'll purposely not activate them until you need them, and then you will ride the periphery of the area where you would get sucked in, and let the enemies come to you and then get sucked into the black hole. Let's see. Weapons. So the weapons in this game are really simple. You have a cannon, and I think I spelled that wrong. I think it's C-A-N-O-N, which starts off as a dual projectile. It shoots 2 bullets, and then as the game proceeds and you get more points, you will get weapon upgrades. Your weapon will get, every once in a while, you hit a certain point value, it will get faster, or you will get more bullets with a greater spread. And so I haven't decided on the schedule for when those things get put in as far as points go, but I'll come up with some random schedule and we'll implement it so that it's similar but not the same to the game. It's worth noting that every time your weapon gets upgraded, that upgrade only lasts for a few seconds, like maybe 10, and then it goes back to the cannon again. Now again, different versions of this game, releases on Xbox versus Windows, may behave a little bit differently. But that's what I've seen in the Windows version. The other weapon is a mine, and you get 3 of these to start with. And if you've ever played, what's that game, the side-scroller, Defender. So if you ever played the old retro arcade Defender game, you'll be familiar with the concept of a mine. A mine is a weapon that, when dropped, immediately detonates and destroys all enemies in the game world. So this is the weapon of last resort. This is when you are really up against the wall and it's too much, and you'll find yourself needing these almost immediately in the game, which is it's a good thing, I guess, but maybe it's a sad testament to my ability to play this game. That I quickly run out of mines and then wish I had about a dozen more. But you drop one, destroys all the enemies, and you get a small reprieve before enemies start showing up again on the screen. Camera. Initially, when you look at this game, you'll think, oh, the camera's pretty basic. But if you can, maybe you should watch the video and not play it. Then you'll actually be able to observe. They have a very subtle parallax going on in this game. So what's going on is they've got a 3, maybe 4-layer star field, and then the world is bounded by a neon box, and then there's a grid. And so as you're moving around, you'll see that the star field moves with parallax to give you the sense of depth, but it's real subtle. So that's one of the things I really liked about this game, is that everything they did was perfectly tuned to give you this overall really nice visual experience. So you're completely focused on the neon explosions and all the interactions, but there's a lot of subtle stuff going on in the background to give it extra depth. Another thing that is going on in the background is what I call a perturbable grid. And I should just show you this right away. Let me find it. Come hither.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I ever heard that term before, perturbable.
Well, they've got this grid. So let me show it to you, not perturbed, and you can see this grid, this blue grid in the background with little ripply things going on here. And this grid responds to the motion of your ship and explosions and the black holes and certain things. I think it's supposed to, in a sense, be replicating the concept of energy and gravity releases. And so, for example, when you spawn, that's a huge event. And so all these ripples fly out from the spawn point across the grid. Now, I would really like to implement this, and actually I was talking to Steve, who is watching quietly, about a month or two ago, and he sent me a bit of code that got me started on this. But so far, all we've got is one ripple. What I would like to do is figure out how to do multiple ripple points within one image. And so hopefully by the end of the series, we'll be able to discuss this. This is going to be a shader topic. It'll be a one-episode topic where we talk about how to use a shader if I manage it. I think we should at least do the single ripple. How to use a shader to give a ripple effect on a graphic or a background. Let's see. Let me get this. We're almost through this presentation here, and then I'll show you the game as it stands. The camera. Okay, so the camera is fixed. It tracks the player. It has no lag or anything like that, so it's constantly keeping the player in the middle of the screen. And as I said, the world is bounded. It's a bounded area. It's going to be slightly larger than the screen, and it has a strong neon border and a grid to show you just basically where the world is. The one I'm going to show you today doesn't have a star field yet, but it will by the time we start our discussion. One of the major challenges of this game is the special effects. Now, I think that they did a lot of close to the metal programming for this when they implemented it, because this came out on the first Xbox hardware, and yet it performs flawlessly, even though you can get thousands and thousands of particles on the screen at a time. So some of the kinds of effects that we're going to have to replicate are a radial explosion of particles, and so that's this one here, where when an enemy or your ship explodes, you get a burst of lines or very thin rectangles coming out in a radial pattern. And that this screen here in the middle shows you the chaos that can occur. And that first screenshot I showed, which is just like everything exploding and all these particles coming out, that's what all this is. Everything overlapping. But another major particle effect is the player trail. So the player leaves behind this trail of particles. Now, one thing that I'm not going to be doing initially is giving these things glow. So you'll notice that all of the effects in the game have glow, and until I solve the particles quantity issue, I don't want to deal with glow, because glow will in effect double the work for us as far as computing goes, and so I don't want to add more work on top of the fundamentals. And then there's grid perturbation, or what did I call it previously? Yeah, perturbable grid. And we will have to deal with that very late in the show, because I wish to get to all of the other elements first, and that involves me coding them up. So